Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the propaganda, and it happens in Australia as much as anywhere, but the propaganda doing the rounds that there's a chronic worker shortage, but only in white majority countries. Only in the white countries there's a chronic worker shortage, chronic skills shortage, high skilled worker shortage. And it's a disaster. The economy is going, and I've done a number of videos on this, but the propaganda, over the last couple of days in Australia, the politicians of the major parties have been coming up and pushing this nonsense and telling us most outrageous fucking lies and more lies. It drives me crazy. Now, whenever there's resistance against mass migration, particularly given that they've recently seriously ginned up the mass migration numbers, whenever they encounter or sense resistance to mass migration, they pivot away from calling people Nazis and far right and all this sort of stuff, and then go, well, it's a worker shortage. We just can't find workers. There are no workers. There are no workers anywhere. It's a fucking disaster. And of course, this is just again outrageous lies. There is no worker shortage. Now, the excuse they use, or one amongst the excuses they use, or the examples they say, well, look, we've all noticed how hard it is to get a tradesman, like a plumber or electrician or whatever it is. We all notice how hard it is, and so we have to keep on importing masses of third world peasants. Now, if indeed it was a shortage of tradespeople, let's assume that's the case. How will it be solved by importing illiterate peasants from the third world? It won't be solved by that. So that's lunacy. Can you get tradespeople to come from other countries? Whether, say, a tradesman like a plumber to move from another white country from one white country to another. That's not really what they want. They're only really interested in provided the person coming in is black or brown. So it's not a genuine sort of thing to say, look, we want more plumbers, because they probably could do that if they wanted. But now we want more plumbers, but the plumber has to be an illiterate black or brown peasant, but they're not going to be plumbers. Now, let's have a look at the main source of migration from to Australia and to other places like Britain. It's from the Indian subcontinent. Now, the middle classes, or those who fancy themselves as middle class, or upper class, or towards the upper class in India, they view any sort of physical labor as being something that only the untouchables do. The very bottom class, the lowest of the low classes, do that sort of work. So they think it's, even Indians, they're not Brahmins or anything, but they look down their nose. They think coming to Australia the West is a way of escaping this having to do manual labor, which only the lowest peasants do. So they don't really want to do this. And if you look at the amount of plumbers and electricians and the like that are Indian, you'll struggle to find even one. I'm sure you could find one. But so the main source of that is so now you can have the Pakistanis or others. Now, if they do, and the Australian government's been paying $5,000 Australian, which is a lot of fucking money, and if you're in India or Pakistan, for people to do, I think it's a 9-month sort of, orientation course, I think I could call it, for being a tradesman. And so these people are given this, provided they come to Australia. Now, they'll come to Australia and they have to start a course as a tradesman. But the minute they can get out of doing that, they do. So that money's being completely wasted, because the emphasis on the politically correct thing of we only want black and brown tradespeople, but they're illiterate in their own language. How the fuck are you going to get them to be tradespeople in the West? So it makes no sense from the beginning. So the mismanagement of this and the wokeness that they apply to it, and only black and brown peasants welcome, this sort of stuff is just lunacy. Now, the other side of it is some years ago, and this is all across the Western world in unison. The view was that tradespeople and labouring jobs would sort of disappear, and so there was a reduced emphasis on trade schools and trade type education. So the numbers the numbers of students in a trade, or those studying a trade, dipped quite considerably. And there were a couple of reasons for this. That all the governments were pushing very hard for people to go on to students to go on to university, and also pushing for at the very minimum for children to finish senior high school. Now, to do this, of course, they had to go full affirmative action, and people that should have left school, that had an IQ of -5 million, they were given smiley stamp, gold star, affirmative action, participation trophy passes to go into senior high school, and some state governments even paying people to stay in senior high school rather than, say, learn a trade. Now, they made a fatal error here, that the salaries or the income or the pay that a student, like a trade student would get, was the assumption that they would begin their apprenticeship when they were 14 years and 9 months old. That was sort of the underlying economic assumption. And they were paid quite a paltry wage because they would still be living with their folks, and they would be studying, I think it was 1.5 days a week, I think, for the first year. So the employer was only getting 3.5 days for a junior worker, and so they didn't pay them very much, and they were, again, 14 years, 15 years old anyway. But then when they encouraged these kids to stay at school, and made every effort to get them to stay at school, kids that normally under a merit system would have left school at 15, even if they just finished, got their junior high school diploma, they'd have left school at 15 and then gone off and done a trade, or left school in third year high school when they turned 14 years and 9 months, which was the case, I think, in Australia for quite a while. And then they could have gone out and got started studying a trade, because they were no good at school. They weren't interested in being a school student, so they could just go off and learn a trade, get paid, and all that sort of stuff. So so when these kids came out, though, finished high school at 18, they were still being offered the pay of a 15-year-old, and no adjustment was made for that. It was in some places that the change was very slow, but even today they still want to pay minimum wages to 18-year-olds, because the employer reasonably says, well, you're just staying your apprenticeship. You've got to go to technical school for a day a week, or something. Like why should I pay you a higher wage? So that was a serious problem that still even today hasn't been successfully navigated. So getting into a trade is simply not attractive to a lot of people. They can go and work at a cafe, or they can go and work at a takeout food store or something like that, and they can get a better pay than they would if they were an apprentice. Now, you have to be thinking longer term to say, well, but it means instead of being a fully qualified electrician or plumber when you were 20 years old, they're now looking at 23 or 24 years old before they're a qualified plumber or electrician. So that's made a huge difference as well. So there were a lot of inbuilt failures. Now, the governments, Western governments, did start to realise that, holy shit, we need to help get more kids into plumbing. But again, they went political correctness. They tried to get lesbians to come in to do it, and hey, lesbians, you can become a tradie, and guess what? We'll put you in charge of straight white men, and you can boss them about and tell them what to do. You'll be the boss. You'll be the boss of those straight white males, all the ones who are Nazis. You'll be in charge. You can stick it up those fucking straight white males. So they tried seriously. They tried an advertising campaign like that, and what a fucking joke. So really, no serious attempt was made to address this imbalance in a number of areas with tradespeople. Now let's fast forward to today, where I've tried to get stuff done in the house. I tried to get a plumber to do. It was something that wasn't actually a big job, and I did and ah about attempting it myself. I thought, well, I don't want to fuck it up, but getting a plumber out, it took it's one of the. It was a serious one. One of the toilets was blocked. I mean, we've got more than one bathroom, so, but one of the toilets was blocked, and one of the there was a one of the parts had broken, if you like. I'm simplifying that a little bit. One of the parts had broken, so we needed to get a plumber in to do some of the work, and there's a little bit of annealing and that sort of stuff needed to be done. But the getting the plumber out took days, and the guy was quite candid with me. He owned a plumbing business, and so he's quite candid. And he said, "Look, given the work you want done, I can only, again, I'll simplify it a bit. I can only charge you $100 for that work. It's barely worth my while to be out there. And I've got no other jobs to be done in the area. So I've got to send a guy out to travel from the nearest other job, which is like half an hour travel. I can't really charge you for that. I can only charge you X amount. And so it's just not worth my while. You'll pay me $100 for the job, but it'll cost me $120 to do the job. So I'm not interested in doing it." So and that was the attitude that so it's not a shortage of tradies here. I can get tradies, that's no problem. But in order to get them out, I've either got to pay a huge amount, double what it should cost, or I have to wait until they're ready to do it. But there is no shortage of plumbers, no shortage at all. It's just that this fits into an economic category of a small job that's barely worth their while to do. So a few days later, the guy gets another job. This plumbing business gets another plumbing job in the area, and so he calls back, says, "Hey, Billy Bob, we can do that now, and the guy will be over." Turns out that he didn't need to do any. He took a couple of things out, put a couple of things in. He said, "Look, I won't need to do this. I can just wrap some tape around here and do da da da." And the guy was in and out in 5 minutes, and he was pretty grateful for that. But in and out 5 minutes, but it still cost $150 or something for him to turn up. But they got two jobs in the area. So we need to separate the issue between marginal, not worth it little jobs and a profitable job. So the plumber's got a business. He's going to do the profitable work first, and he doesn't want to do loss-making business, particularly with it's a household where he can't have us as a long-term customer necessarily. And so anyway, so we need to really separate. The other thing is that a lot of the plumbing jobs or tradie jobs, just could be carpentry, could be electricians, whatever. You're only needed for a short time, so it's effectively a casual job, and even though that you may be agreed that they'll pay you a certain rate, if they can find somebody cheaper to do it, they'll kick you out and get the other guys to come in. So there's no job security or contractual security there. And I find that in our business that the folks that we're subcontracting to are very, very trigger happy just to throw you overboard at the drop of a hat and for no reason, because they found someone who can do it cheaper, or they fucked up doing the project spec and think, well, we don't really need these guys, or we only need them for a week or two, and these sorts of things. So, and you got to take them to court to threaten to take them to court to get paid, which is the last thing you want to do, because it creates unpleasantness and so on. But coming back to the thing here, that there is no shortage of these tradespeople. It's just this, and the same with labourers. Even casual labourers, maybe we'll need you, maybe we won't. Why don't you turn up, and then we'll let you know if you need it. No, we don't need you, go home. And so the idea of having on-demand labour, on-demand labourers and workers, on-demand tradespeople, that's the issue. So they want to pay bottom dollar but have on-demand standby services. So that's really the thing. Now, in other things where, say, fencing, and I was having a talk to someone about this, saying, well, I needed some work done on my fence, but I found it really hard to get a guy to do the fencing and da da da. Now it turns out when you actually drill down, he didn't have trouble getting it. He didn't want to pay much money, and when he called around to the fencing contractors, and they would say, "Well, show us some photographs," and go, "Okay, well, we'll that'll cost you $100." So. $100? I don't want to pay $100. So he'd keep on calling around to the fence, and nobody was prepared to do it for less than $100. So his response is, well, if there were more fencing contractors, that would drive the price down. But the $100 wasn't an unreasonable price, but it's a small job. He wants a few fence palings, changed. He wants a little bit of work. He has one whole fence done. It's not a whole project. He wants a little bit of spot maintenance work, but there's no fencing contractors. There's a shortage of labour. Mass migration. So none of this is real. If the working conditions were better, if there was some sort of surety in work rosters and pay rates, the problem with 18-year-olds doing first-year apprenticeship is you've got to pay them a higher wage. Make it attractive for them. This is a supply and demand economy. Make it attractive for these people to do the work. Maybe you've got to work them a bit harder. Maybe you naturally sort out the brightest ones that you want to invest your money in, and so on. But there are things that could be done that would drastically change this. So this idea of worker shortage, skill shortage, tradie shortage is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. The last thing I'll talk about is the shortage or the inability to get tradies out into the rural areas. Now, the small rural townships and so on. Now, if you're a tradie with a successful business or business in the city, why would you move out into the middle of nowhere to have a tradie business, which would be much smaller and where you'd struggle to have anywhere near the sort of customer base that you would in the city? So it'll be a very small market you'll be involved. Why would you do that if you've already got a business in the city? Let's suppose you're a tradie that's, say, working for the public service or something like that. Why would you move away from your long-term employment with a good retirement scheme and all this sort of thing? Why would you do that? If you're a new kid starting out, who's just got your certificate to be a tradesperson, why would you go to a little country town? You'd stay in the city where there's lots more shops and lots of chicks, and you wouldn't be going out in the middle of nowhere. Now you would if the deal was attractive enough, if you're being paid enough, or if you're being offered enough. Sure, you would. So in order to attract tradies in those places, they have to make it attractive enough. That kids that learn a trade in those country towns, the first thing they do when they can is get the fuck out and go to the city. So it's they're losing the talent they've got, and they're making no effort to keep that talent or to attract it or to reward it accordingly. So again, it's a supply and demand thing. But the globalist mantra, the financial mantra of the globalist, is that we want to depress demand on wages and aggressively so, mass immigration, and we want to pump up demand, artificially demand for things like property and other stuff that the multinationals can make a nice big profit out of. So we're seeing this direct interference in the economy is also very much a part of it. But the idea that there's been a shortage of tradies and shortage of labourers, it's bullshit, total bullshit. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.